Nosferatu, a highly discussed movie with great cinematography and some very solid acting performances. But is that enough to make it a good movie? Come rock with your boy Tech and let's dive into the review of the last horror movie of 2024, Nosferatu. This movie was directed by Robert Eggers. It stars Lily Rose Depp as Ellen, Nicholas Hoult as Thomas, Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, and Willem Dafoe as Professor Albin. So in this movie, in the early 1830s, a young girl named Ellen pleads for a supernatural being to alleviate her solitude. She's this character that is feeling this profound level of loneliness, and through her loneliness and her cries, she ends up awakening a mysterious entity, aka Count Orlok or Nosferatu, which leads her to pledge herself to him eternally. Now, as we move forward a little later in 1838, Ellen is now married to Thomas. And for Thomas, he's looking to give them a level of financial stability, and like I said, just looking for more opportunities to make money. So he accepts this assignment from his employer, Herr Knock. And essentially the assignment is to go sell this estate or this manor to Count Orlok. Now, with him doing this, that means he would have to travel and be away from Ellen, and Ellen pretty much does everything in her power to plead to Thomas to, get him to stay. She doesn't want to be alone, and especially with her experiencing all of these different dreams of like being married to death and just all this good stuff. She is not trying to be by herself one bit, but Thomas pretty much can't refuse the offer, and he sets his way on to Count Orlok anyway. Now, upon him arriving to the Carpathian Alps, which is where Count Orlok is, he's shunned by members of the town for his association with the Count. Count Orlok almost in a way is viewed as death himself pretty much. So a lot of the town is not fooling with Count Orlok at all. And while he's there, he notices Roma villagers exhuming and impaling a suspected vampire's body. And then the very next morning, he notices that pretty much everybody in the town is gone. But either way, he still has to continue on his mission and his assignment to go to Count Orlok. And that's exactly what he does. He continues on that. And then once he gets to Count Orlok's castle, here's one aspect that I really want to talk about is the presence of Count Orlok. I think that he has a lot of presence in this movie, even when it's not necessarily showing him on screen, but just hearing his voice and the soundscape and the score for him just is pretty much perfect in a way. And then as you hear him like getting up and walking, and then like you hear just the loud bassy thumps of every single step, like you can really feel the impact. And then with him and his talking and all that damn wheezing that he has to take like a humongous deep breath every time he says like 3 sentences. And you can clearly tell that Thomas in a way is pretty intimidated by the Count. Like you can see in his eyes that he is just like ready to get this whole thing over with, get him to sign this paper and really get out of there. So what ends up happening is Thomas ends up convinced by Count Orlok that they need to go ahead and get this whole thing signed right now, and forces Thomas to sign his name as well. And essentially what Thomas was doing was signing his wife Ellen away to the Count. And Thomas ends up cutting his finger, and next thing you know, he's unconscious, and then he wakes up with bite marks on his chest. And Orlok also steals the locket that contains Ellen's hair, and that's essentially where he got even more obsessed with wanting Ellen. And so as we move forward, Thomas is growing a little bit sick. He discovers Orlok sleeping in a coffin. He feels like this is his opportunity to drive a stake into him, but Orlok ends up waking up before he can do so, and ends up feeding on Thomas again. Thomas eventually escapes and ends up being nursed back to health by some Orthodox nuns at a nearby church. And then from that point, it's pretty much Orlok's journey on his way to getting Ellen. And as he sails towards Ellen, he brings a plague of rats and just everything. So like he's just literally is like a personification of the plague. And so while he's traveling towards Ellen and Thomas is dealing with everything that Thomas is dealing with, you have Ellen, on the other hand, she's sleepwalking and having all these seizures, and it's so bad to the point that her doctor ends up recommending her to consult with one of his former mentors, which is the scientist Professor Albin. And so once Orlok finally hits the city where Ellen is, then you can see that once again his plague just pretty much infects everybody that's there. And when Orlok finally meets with Ellen, he pretty much demands her to know that, hey, like this eternal bond and thing that we have, like you pretty much have to give yourself to me. Then from there, he ends up intensifying her dreams and all of the different things that she's feeling. And she must do this within the next 3 nights, or else he threatened to kill Thomas and let the plague consume the whole town. So a little bit later on, Ellen ends up confessing her whole situation with Count Orlok to Thomas, and then she ends up experiencing another seizure, and then in retaliation, Orlok ends up going and killing Anna and all her children. So then from there, moving closer towards the end of the movie, Professor Alban and Ellen devise this plan where they trick Thomas to go after Count Orlok. They give him the wrong location, so he's pretty much going on a hunt for nothing, because the professor and Ellen end up concocting this idea and discovering that Count Orlok can be destroyed by way of sacrifice. So Thomas, Alban, and Willem end up going to Count Orlok's manor, where they accidentally kill Ernoch. Then it was at this point where Thomas realized that it was just a distraction to keep him from interrupting the original plan. He starts rushing back towards Ellen, and by this point it's too late, and Ellen essentially gives herself into Count Orlok, and they have this, like I said, weird, sensual, seductive, little horrific romantic scene. Pledges to him, and then tries to keep him distracted longer, allows him to feed on her just to keep him distracted a little bit longer. And she was doing that to give time for the sun to rise, so the sun would then shine on him and be the ultimate cause of his death. They, like I said, in this horrific romantic way, he ends up like dying and shriveling up on her while they're laying in the bed, and they both die. And the professor and Thomas come in, and Thomas holds her hand as she's taking some of her last breaths, and the professor tries to reassure Thomas that she did this as a sacrifice to end Count Orlok and end the plague and all this good stuff. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is your movie Nosferatu. Now, talking about my thoughts on the movie, well, we'll say from a technical aspect, the cinematography was very good, amazing at that. I think that there were some incredible shots. That's one aspect that you can never doubt Robert Eggers in, is his ability to frame his shot, and his color palette and his design and his style. I really do dig it. So from that aspect, and from, like I said, the score, and really giving Count Orlok real presence and making him feel really menacing. Okay, great. That little mustache on Count Orlok made him look like a predator, but outside of that, just overall design, I think it was really good. Acting performances, like I said, Lily Rose Depp was the best performance of the movie. She was really good, and you can really feel like her sense of dread and how she's truly impacted by Count Orlok and all the sick sensual stuff that he was doing to her. But yeah, now if I'm gonna keep it funky with y'all, the movie honestly wasn't just slow burn. It was kind of boring. Can't even lie to you. Like there was so much in the beginning leading up to the time that Thomas even got to Count Orlok's castle, and some of the foolishness that they were doing in between there. And really the only thing that was really driving it home was a lot of things that Ellen was experiencing. And that's not to say that it's a bad movie, because it's not a bad movie. Like I said, it was fine writing wise. Cinematography was good. The acting performances were good. Score was good. It's just honestly not my cup of tea. Me personally, I don't really particularly like sitting around for 2 hours watching the ultimate slow burn, because even in the scenes where Count Orlok was killing somebody or, feeding on them or anything to that extent, it's not like it was overly shocking or they really truly just got brutalized or anything crazy. It was just like, okay, well, they're dead, and here we go to the next thing, and then the next people die, and then, like I said, the whole plague with the plague and the rat, so you're seeing people being ill and all this good stuff. Like, okay, that's fine, but it just was very long and very slow, and just not enough action happening in the movie. This movie ain't nothing but a big gothic love story, if we're being honest. It's about a girl that's stuck between two loves. A love that she can't resist, and a love that she's trying not to resist. You see what I'm saying? Like Orlok, she can't resist that because Count Orlok has such a big hold on her, especially from her pledging before she even met Thomas. Then with her finally meeting Thomas and, wanting to really explore and have that life with him, she's still being held back. She's trying not to resist that life. She can't have it the way she wanted anyway because of the impact that Count Orlok is having on her. So like I said, it doesn't necessarily make for a bad movie, but like, even if I was revising my top 5 from last year, this movie still wouldn't make it, to be honest. Like, it's not better than Oddity and, The Substance and some of these other movies. But one thing I will say is it is better than, Maxine, Longlegs, and, The Watchers, and I don't know, and probably a couple of other movies, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, for me, this movie will come in at roughly about a 6 out of 10. Like I said, there are some good aspects with it. Like, from a technical aspect, I think it was fine. But just from an overall enjoyment and like, wow, I really want to rewatch this movie or anything like that, it's not nah, it's not up there in that aspect. But yeah, that's all I got. Y'all comment down below what you think of the movie Nosferatu, the last horror movie of 2024. Pretty much everybody on social media is talking about this movie, and the majority of the people feel like it's the best thing since sliced bread. I don't agree, but it's not a bad movie in any stretch. But yeah, y'all comment down below what y'all thought of the movie. Y'all like the video, y'all subscribe. We're on the road to 10K subs. Trying to hit that as soon as possible. You know, we're gonna keep this momentum rolling. Y'all already know I'm gonna keep putting the bangers out. So yeah, like I said, Spooky Gang, until next time, y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky.